Hi everybody, welcome to Gemcraft Studio. I'm Sara Lovecraft, and today I have a beautiful stringing project for you guys where we're going to be using some gorgeous aventurine beads. I'm going to show you how to string those up, give you some tips and ideas, and I'm going to show you how to crimp and finish the bracelet off. Let's get started. So to get started, we're going to be using some Beadalon 7-strand bead stringing wire. If you're not familiar with the bead stringing wire packaging, you want to pay attention to this area here. This is going to tell you what size of crimps that you need to use with your bead stringing wire. So we know right away that this bead stringing wire diameter is going to work with this size crimp. We are going to be using the size 2 crimp tubes to go with this project. We're also going to be using size 6 jump rings, size 4 jump rings, a lobster clasp, as well as our wire guardians. Now for beads, we're going to be using these gorgeous aventurine rondelles, and we're also using some spacer beads. So the tools that we're going to be using for today's project are our crimper tool. This is going to crimp our crimp tubes. We're going to be using our cutter tool to trim our bead stringing wire. We're going to be using a combination of chain nose pliers and bent chain nose pliers to open and close our jump rings. And I always have a pair of round nose pliers on hand just in case I need them. Before we get started with the bead stringing itself, I want to talk a little bit about the beads. There's nothing more exciting than getting a brand new strand of beads, particularly when they are gorgeous gemstones. And a lot of times when you get those beads, you want to take those home and string those up right away. You don't want to think about it. You just want to transfer these from the stringing material that they are on to your bead stringing wire. However, not all beads work that easily. And a rondelle is a shape that you definitely need to take a little extra care with. All right, we're going to cut a piece of our bead stringing wire for the bracelet that we are going to be creating. And we need to cut about 10 inches or 12 inches if you need a little bit longer of a bracelet. The first step to creating your bracelet is to thread on your crimp tube. You want to slide the crimp tube on. Give yourself about 1.5 inches to 2 inches before you thread on your wire guardian. Thread the bead stringing wire up through the wire guardian and then down through the wire guardian and back down through your crimp tube. Pull out any excess slack that you have in your bead stringing wire and pull that crimp tube down close to your wire guardian. You don't want them to be touching, but you do want those to be as close as possible. You want to make sure that your bead stringing wire is running parallel inside your crimp tube and that those wires are not crisscrossing over the top of each other inside that crimp tube. You're going to place that into the back notch of the crimper tool and you're going to give that a squeeze. When you bring that notch down, as you squeeze your crimper tool, it's going to further separate those wires out within the inside of that crimp tube. Then you're going to take that out of the tool, you're going to turn it sideways, and you're going to place that into the front notch of your crimper tool and give that a squeeze as well. That's going to tidy up your crimp and make it smaller. Before you cut off the excess bead stringing wire, run the tail of the wire through at least 1 or 2 beads. We're starting with 2 of the metal beads, and now we're going to use our cutter tool to trim off the excess beading wire. All right, now we are ready to proceed with adding our gemstones. We are going to add 1 rondelle and 1 metal bead until we have filled up our bead stringing wire with our beads. You want to fill your bead stringing wire with 1 inch less of the length of the bracelet that you are trying to create. So for instance, if you need a 7-inch bracelet, that includes the hardware, you're going to need to only string up 6 inches of beads plus your wire guardian at the ends, because the addition of your 6mm or 4mm jump rings and your clasp, depending on the size of the jump ring, can add an additional 1 inch to 1.5 inches to your overall bracelet length. I finished with the same 2 metal beads that I started with, so both ends match, and we're ready to crimp again. You also want to be sure that you leave yourself 1 inch to 1.5 inches of bead stringing wire so that you can crimp. So now we're going to thread our crimp tube on and our wire guardian. Thread the crimp tube on and up through the wire guardian with your bead stringing wire, back down through the wire guardian, down through the crimp, and if you can take that bead stringing wire down through a bead or two, take your bead stringing wire up through the wire guardian, back down through the wire guardian, and down through the crimp. And then if you can take that wire down through a bead or two, that makes it easier for you to use your cutter tool to cut the ends. Now we're going to place this into the back notch of our crimper tool. And just like before, we want to be sure that our bead stringing wire is not crisscrossing on the inside of that tube, that those wires are running parallel. Give that a squeeze, turn it sideways, place that into the front notch of your crimper tool, and give that a squeeze. Then using your cutter tool, come in and trim the leftover bead stringing wire as close as you can get it. Now you're ready to add your hardware. The hardware consists of 2 jump rings and a clasp, but for me, I also like to add a little dangle, a little extra movement, so I'm going to be adding a charm as well. Place your jump ring between 2 pairs of pliers, holding your non-dominant hand still and using your dominant hand to walk open the jump ring. Take the jump ring, thread it onto the wire guardian. At this point, you can add your clasp and then place it back between 2 pairs of pliers and walk the jump ring closed. Follow the same steps on the opposite side of the bracelet, opening your jump ring, attaching that to your wire guardian, and closing with your pliers. To add a charm, we're going to use a smaller jump ring, a 4mm. We're going to take that jump ring, open that with our pliers, add our charm, and before closing, we're going to add that to one of the jump rings that we have already added. I like to add my charm to the jump ring that is holding the clasp on the bracelet so that when I go to put my bracelet on, I don't accidentally grab the charm instead of the jump ring when I'm closing my clasp. Use your pliers to close your jump ring. Make sure you get good closures on all of those, and your bracelet is complete. And there you have it. We have a beautiful piece of jewelry that did not take a lot of time, and it's showing off those beautiful rondelle beads elegantly with those beads in between there, really giving each one of those beads an opportunity to shine. I love the rondelle bead shape. Comment below some of your favorite bead shapes to work with. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our future projects here on Gemcraft Studio. I'm Sara Lovecraft. Thanks for letting me be a part of your beady journey.